What's up, Doc? This week is Bugs Bunny's birthday, so we're going to celebrate by leading off with a joke. Here we go. What do Daffy Duck and Elon Musk have in common? They both hate pronouns. This week I was watching the television and I saw a commercial. I'm sorry, that pause messed me up. Okay. Um, I haven't done this in a while, so. I saw a commercial, and it was for a theme park in Orlando, Florida, and they were talking about cleaning the park, which I guess is important. After you survive a 114-foot drop, you want to make sure your hands are clean. And they were showing like a montage of all these different ways they were cleaning the park and wiping things down, scrubbing things, mopping things, spraying, all this. And there was one clip, it was about 2 seconds long, that showed one of the moving sidewalks, and there was somebody wiping the moving handrail of the moving sidewalk in one spot as it was moving and spinning the whole time. So we're going to be talking about birthday. Birthday is the theme. Tonight, Bugs Bunny and Judy share a birthday. That's kind of cool. Tonight we're talking about Judy's birthday surprise. Of course, we're talking about Judy Jetson, the eldest child of the Jetsons. It opens up with Astro, and he's outside sleeping on the balcony of the, I guess, multi-family dwelling that the Jetsons reside in. And this might be because they put him outside finally because all those fleas. That's kind of a callback, but I'm not sure if that's a continuity or, maybe he just needed some fresh air. But he's awoken by a cat, and the cat, it pretty much sounds like a screaming rabbit, and it outwits him because, he chases after it, and Astro falls off the balcony when the cat kind of like sidesteps, but then Astro rises back up on top of a space car, somebody else's space car. And this is kind of like a movie trope, I guess, from a lot of action movies where like the hero falls off or like the villain jumps off, and then you see them rising up on a car or a ship or something. I guess not really a car, but a helicopter or a plane, on the wing of a plane, a space something. And I guess this is where that movie trope comes from, is this episode of the Jetsons, because this is the first time it ever happened. So I guess this scene kind of fizzles out. It doesn't really go anywhere. Astro just comes back up and runs into a door chasing after the cat, and then we never see the cat again. But the real episode starts. We go next to Judy in her room, and she's telling the story to her diary, and that's kind of how this episode is narrated. And her diary is a floating robot that she calls Dai, which is a set of lips, and she actually forgot where she put it last because she has to hide it, because Elroy sneaks into her room, is nosy Elroy. He comes in, and maybe she should write it down in her, not write it, but speak it verbally, record it, where she's going to hide it in her diary so that she can find it next time. But this kind of begs the question of why would she need to hide it at all if the diary is a sentient robot, unless because Elroy would have to, I guess, interrogate it, or maybe have Orbity hack it somehow. But the diary basically confirms to Judy that her lips are sealed. And, going off of that, Judy begins to tell the story of starting what happened last Monday. We don't know what day she's actually telling the story, but I guess we start the Monday before her birthday. And Judy is driving her space car, and it actually just breaks down and stops, just floating right there. And good old Nick Nova comes by, and he knocks on her windshield. He's actually floating around in a jetpack, which is basically an e-bike in this kind of setting. And she goes, you arrived in the nick of time, Nick. And that phrase is redundant, because the nick is actually referring to time itself. It's kind of superfluous to say it that way. And this phrase actually comes from 1565 translation by Arthur Golding. He translated Ovid's Metamorphosis, which was originally written in 8 A.D. And this is the phrase where he got it from. It's another thing clean overthwart there cometh in the nick, as this is the nick of time, in the nick. The Lady Semel, great with child by Joan, as then was quick. And there's some old English there, so that's kind of cool. That I guess because his name is Nick, they wanted to use it, but it is superfluous to say it that way. She asked him for help because her space car broke down on the way to school, and he basically flies over and he narrowly avoids getting hit by another space car. So he's like, nah, this is too dangerous for me to be here flying around. So he just flies away and leaves. And then I guess the next guy to come along is Andy Andromeda. And he's zooming by. He's not in a jetpack. He's got his own space car that's pretty cool. And Judy hails him down for help. And this is kind of ironic because Andromeda, according to Greek mythology, is actually the one who needed help from Perseus, because Poseidon sent the sea monster Cetus to attack Ethiopia when Andromeda's mom, Cassiopeia, was boasting that Cassiopeia is more beautiful than all of the sea nymphs. And I guess Poseidon likes the sea nymphs, and he doesn't like boastful Cassiopeia. So they sacrifice Andromeda. They put Andromeda as a sacrifice, and Perseus has to save her. And this is actually also documented in Ovid's Metamorphosis, which is kind of a cool connection. It comes from like the princess and dragon motif. Kind of started here with this. So again, that's Ovid's Metamorphosis. And now Andy, he also cannot help Judy because, even though he's like, I'd love to help a raging beauty like you, but he is actually running late for spaceball practice. And, Andy Andromeda not being able to help her. I guess fans of the show Silicon Valley will get this next one. It's these guys, Andy Andromeda specifically, by not being able to help her, he's being a triple A, like the roadside assistance service, a triple A is a reference to the show. So, he's like, they can't start spaceball practice without their number one all-galaxy superstar quarterback, which is an important player in spaceball. So Judy says, fair weather friends I don't need. And this is actually the idiom of the day on idioms.online. I guess you must check that. But another kid finally shows up, and this guy is named Curly Quasar, and he's got a bow tie and glasses on, and he recognizes her. She doesn't recognize him at all. She actually doesn't even hear his name correctly, but they're in the same literature class. he actually says, Judy, you're in my cosmic literature class. And those of you who might know this or might not know this, just as a reminder, cosmic literature is basically literary philosophy coming from H.P. Lovecraft, talking about cosmicism, and basically revolves around fear of the cosmic void. And Lovecraft actually created a fictional town called Innsmouth, which is basically a twisted version of Newburyport, Massachusetts. And this Innsmouth town is actually similar. It's based a video game town, I guess, in the video game series Warframe. There's actually a town called Cetus, which is kind of based on Innsmouth. And Cetus is in the game. Cetus is located near the Caspian Sea, and of course gets its name from Poseidon's monster sent to attack Ethiopia, because Perseus and Andromeda are there, and Andromeda's mom was being all boastful, and they actually tied her to a rock as the human sacrifice. They tied Andromeda to a rock. But Curly, says it's no big deal to help out. She's just out of fuel pellets, and she keeps calling him Burly and Pearly instead of Curly. So he actually helps her out. He adds some spare fuel pellets that he happens to have on him, even though he's in a jetpack as well. He's in one of those jetpacks. So she can't believe that she was, so forgetful. I guess she chalks it up to her mind being distracted on. She's on her way to get a perm for her annual surprise birthday party on Saturday. So this is Monday. So this is the week of her birthday, and Curly is like, "Oh yeah, have fun at your birthday surprise." So she zooms off, and then we kind of segue back to Judy talking to her diary. And the diary asks, oh, is this Curly Quasar? Is he cute? And Judy's like, well, he has other fine qualities. And so the diary, of course, next has to ask if he's rich. And Judy's like, not really. So diary is like, well, and, what do you want him for? But Judy, reminds her diary not to be such a skeptic.
Nothing's going right. Why don't you let me stop by? The clock is ticking, running out of time, so we should party all night. So cover your eyes, I have a surprise. I hope you get a healthy appetite. If you want to dance, if you want it all, you know that I'm the girl that you should call. When you're with me, I'll give you a taste. Make it like your birthday every day. I know you like it sweet, so you can have your cake. Give you something good to celebrate. So make a wish. I'll make it like your birthday every day. I'll be your gift. What do you want for Christmas? Give you something good to celebrate. Pop your confetti and pop your perignon. So hot and heavy till dawn. I got you spinning like a disco ball. All night they're playing your song. We're living a life and doing it right. You're never gonna be unsatisfied. If you wanna dance, if you want it all, you know that I'm the girl that you should call. When you're with me, I'll give you a taste. Make it like your birthday every day. I know you like it sweet, so you can have your cake. Give you something good to celebrate. So make a wish. I'll make it like your birthday every day. I'll be your
So Judy goes back to her story, and now we're on Tuesday. Judy's waking up, and her memo minder, which is kind of like a robot head that comes out, and it looks like a secretary robot, and it's got glasses that have an eyewear retainer on them. And as of today, it informs her, as of today, she has exactly 257 days of school left. And, 5 days of school a week puts it, that's exactly 52 weeks of school. And there are, 36 weeks of school in a year about. So she's just about halfway into her junior year, which checks out because this is actually her 16th birthday coming up on Saturday. And if the school year is the same as what it is today, then this puts her birthday on January 30th, with this many days of school left. But that's assuming that it's the same calendar. Next, the memo minder says that she actually has a date tonight on Tuesday night with Gaylord Gamut, and he's a senior, so she figures she should wear something a little bit more mature than her, lavender jumpsuit. So she actually suggests a Venusian two-piece, but the memo minder reminds her that the dress was returned by Jane for being too mature, so she actually just settles for the jumpsuit. So we kind of see that Judy is convinced that her family is throwing her a surprise party, and she's gotten pretty good over the years at figuring out what it's going to be. Stuff gets leaked, and she's spoils the surprise for herself. She basically asks them to not throw her a party, and then they pretend that they're not going to throw a party, and then they surprise her with a party. And this is her way of doing reverse psychology, which is the only way to do it, according to Judy. So she claims she'll know all the party secrets by lunchtime. So she says she's very good at snooping in order to do this. And we definitely could have used her last time when we were looking at Solar Snoops, because Elroy was actually kind of the star Snoop, if you remember. Next, we see George asleep in his bed, and he is actually dreaming about calling Cosmo Spacely, his employer, spineless space shrimp, which is interesting because shrimp are invertebrates. But George tells Cosmo to clear his desk and get out in the dream. But then George he actually has an army surplus alarm clock from like the Wacky Races car, and this forces him awake. So we see George and Elroy sitting at the breakfast table, and Elroy is kind of tinkering with something robotic. He's got his fancy screwdriver there, and George asks him, how's your top secret project coming along, which is kind of harkens back again to Solar Snoops. But Elroy, tells him it should be done by the end of the week. So Astro brings George a tape recording of the morning news. So, like, I guess instead of going out and fetching the paper, it's on like a disc. And it's the NNN News, which is the Nebulous News Network News. And when George plays the tape on the screen, the news anchor's clothes are all chewed up because Astro, while he was carrying the disc, he bit holes into it, or the tape, and with his teeth. So George, he doesn't really care about the main news guy. He just switches it over to sports, and the sports anchor is fine. And it's reported that the Chicago Comets clobbered the Cincinnati Satellites in Spaceball with a score of 76-17. And once we hear the score, Judy shows up at the breakfast table, and she complains right away about Elroy's mess, all this tinkering he's doing. And both George and Judy force Elroy to take it all back to his room. So next we see Judy trying to do her reverse psychology a little bit more and dropping hints about weekend plans. So, she goes, we don't even look a whole year older. And George admits, well, of course not, because him and Jane only count every third year. And George informs Judy that he and Jane have very special plans for Saturday, formal engagement even. And Judy's like, oh, well, he's just saying that because they're doing a party for me. And, even though I asked them not to, they're going to do a surprise party for me. So next, Judy even asks to check the horoscopes on the news tape, which, that's all about when your birthday is. So that's like a blatant conversation shift to talking about birthdays almost directly. And George kind of jokes. He's like, I thought you Libras didn't believe in astrology, which confirms that Judy is a Libra, putting her birthday between September 22nd and October 22nd. Now, this episode actually aired on Thursday, September 19th, which would mean that Saturday of that year was the 21st of September, which means it couldn't have been Judy's birthday. So I guess the episode didn't air in the same year and week that this occurred. But it also means that the school year in the Jetsons is a little bit different from what we have today. And actually, if you're keeping track, September 19th was actually the day of the Great Mexico City earthquake. But the news says that Libras should be aware that this weekend is for all to share. So Judy is on her way to school that morning, still Tuesday, and she sees Curly Quasar on his jetpack, I guess on the side of the sky, and he's looking for a ride, and she gives him the snub Kramer style. She can't afford to be seen with him because he's not in the elite in crowd, and she's talking to herself. She has to protect her image, but she does feel a little bit guilty about the snub. So she decides to think it over and, is like, maybe there's more to life than good looks and popularity. And in the midst of that, Mickey Meteorite shows up and asks her to go with him to the Jet Screamer concert on Saturday night. And she says no because she has a surprise party. And then Curly is in the hallway now, and he shows up. He got there somehow. And he's actually still using his jetpack around the school, which seems pretty cool. But I guess he's not elite in. And Judy just runs off to avoid him, kind of, again, with the snub. Next, we see her back at home, and on her screen, Andy Andromeda is calling in to ask her to come out and support him at the pep rally on Saturday. And she turns him down because, as we all know, she has plans. Nick Nova calls in next, and he asks her to go to the satellite races Saturday night, which kind of reminds me, back in the day, I would go down Onondaga Boulevard to go watch the submarine races back in Syracuse. And lastly, Mickey Meteorite calls in and asks her to paint the galaxy red with him on Saturday night. And you might get this reference if you drink cognac. But the phrase paint the town red, actually, it originally dates back to the Marquis of Waterford in England. That was, I think, 1837. But the first time the phrase was used in print was in 1883 in a New York Times article. And the quote is, Mr. James Hennessy, there's the cognac, offered a resolution that the entire body proceed forthwith to Newark and get drunk. Then the Democrats charged upon the streetcars and being wafted into Newark proceeded, and then to use their own metaphor, to paint the town red. And I've been to Newark and I've seen some red there. So they did a good job.
What's even going on here? Okay. Woo! What's this song about? Song for Bagel Bagel, yeah, that's a nice idea. Bagel, bagel, bagel. Oh, bagel, bagel, bagel boy. Oh, bagel, bagel, bagel. Oh, bagel, bagel, bagel boy. I got this friend with bagel. Whenever he is able, he comes around to play with me. He's all around. You can see right through his middle, 'cause he's got a big hole where his appendix used to be. Oh, bagel, 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 bagel. He always comes round when he's able. Oh, bagel, 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 bagel. Why is that? Oh, God. Oh, okay. Bagel, bagel, bagel. He always comes round when he's able. Oh, bagel, 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 bagel boy. Always gonna bagel with me. Oh, bagel, bagel, bagel. He always comes round when he's able. Oh, bagel, 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 bagel boy. Bagel with me. Oh, bagel, bagel, bagel. He always comes round when he's able. Oh, bagel, 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 boy. Always gonna bagel with me. Oh. Yeah, my name's Bagel. I'm always round whenever I'm able. What flavor am I? Just look into them. Yeah, you see I'm cinnamon. One day, but other days I got raisins. Yeah, self-raising. That's why I'm so fluffy and luscious. Come on, yeah, you can't touch this. Yeah, 'cause my name is Bagel. Come on, yeah, I like to plagle with Simon. Yeah. Bagel, 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 boy. Always gonna plagle with me. Oh. Yeah, I get around by rolling on the ground. You might not like this, but I had appendicitis. Now I'm sitting in hospital, and the doctors got rid of all the bad stuff inside me. So that's why when you spy me, you can see right through me, 'cause I've got a hole in my tummy. Bagel, bagel, bagel. Bagel, 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 boy. Oh, bagel, bagel, bagel. A bagel, bagel. He always comes round when he's able. Bagel, bagel, bagel. Oh, bagel, bagel. He always comes round when he's able. Whoa. Okay. Let's just touch some of these.
Oh my God, sorry about
Another great song. Another great song.
Another great song there for Bagel.
Next, Judy tries to get info from Rosie, who is on the balcony beating a dusty rug with a fly swatter. And Rosie, sealed lips. She doesn't give away anything. And next, Judy has to resort to sneaking into Elroy's room to look for his stuff. And, of course, Orbity is in there. And he kind of drops down from the ceiling with those spring legs. And he whistles, and Elroy immediately shows up. He must have been right outside. But she gets caught. So she pulls out a present-looking box from under his bed, and he's there like, stop that, put that down, don't open that. But she opens it anyways, and it's full of Saturn slugs that all jump out of the box and start going all over the place. So then Judy is like, this is nuts. So she runs out of there, and she runs to her mom, and basically Jane is, she knows about the Saturn slugs. I guess it's no big deal, and Judy thought it was like disgusting. Next, Jane informs Judy that she got a call from yet another guy, and this time it's Jake from State Farm. I'm kidding. Actually, it's Curly Quasar, and he wants Judy to call him back. And Judy, kind of shrugs it off, says, he's not with it, and she won't call him because she's missed popularity. And Jane kind of criticizes her for this, saying, maybe he's not all that bad. And in the meantime, Jane is holding something behind her back, and Judy inquires, because it must be related to her surprise birthday party. And it's actually the remote control for a little like walk-in closet next to Jane. And I guess the functionality is you walk into the walk-in closet, you press the button on the remote, and then it puts whatever outfit it had in there on you. And Judy, she steps in because she's convinced it's her surprise. So then Jane presses the remote, and then Judy is now wearing a new tuxedo for George. And this is very disheartening. She thought it was her new dress or whatever. And she actually, at this point, begins to doubt that her family will throw her a party at all. And this is like very depressing for her. But I guess next she goes on her date with Gaylord Gamut, because it's still Tuesday night. Next, Jane informs Judy that she got a call from yet another guy, and this time it's Jake from State Farm. I'm kidding. Actually, it's Curly Quasar, and he wants Judy to call him back. And Judy, kind of shrugs it off, says, he's not with it, and she won't call him because she's missed popularity. And Jane kind of criticizes her for this, saying, maybe he's not all that bad. And in the meantime, Jane is holding something behind her back, and Judy inquires, because it must be related to her surprise birthday party. And it's actually the remote control for a little like walk-in closet next to Jane. And I guess the functionality is you walk into the walk-in closet, you press the button on the remote, and then it puts whatever outfit it had in there on you. And Judy, she steps in because she's convinced it's her surprise. So then Jane presses the remote, and then Judy is now wearing a new tuxedo for George. And this is very disheartening. She thought it was her new dress or whatever. And she actually, at this point, begins to doubt that her family will throw her a party at all. And this is like very depressing for her. But I guess next she goes on her date with Gaylord Gamut, because it's still Tuesday night. Now it is Saturday night, and Elroy is on his way out. He is going over to Henry Orbit's place, who's the maintenance man of their building. and he's going to hang out and do inventions in the closet there with Orbity. So they're on their way out the door. Next, Jane and George leave. They're all dressed up in their formal wear. George now dons his tuxedo instead of Judy. And they're all excited for their formal event, so they leave. And actually next, Rosie takes Astro to the dog groomer. So Judy is all alone. And she even tries all of the guys who called her, but they're all, at the party or the concert or the painting that they were going to. So she finally talks to Curly, who is actually calling her to drop off a small gift. And he comes over, like, right away, and he gives her a Plutonian Poetry Volume 1. And, I guess he's kind of surprised that no one is there and she's all alone. But, I guess he didn't have any plans. So he brings her this, it's kind of like a small alien on a platform that reads funny limericks that I will not be repeating. And he even added one of his own, where instead of an alien, it's actually just him on a small platform. And his limerick asks her out on a date to a movie. And she says yes right away and kisses him on the cheek. And, thanks Curly for being there for her and remarks that, where's her family? Her family is not here. And, they must have totally forgotten about her birthday. And, but Curly's there for her. So she likes that, but her family is he's the only one. She even got his name right and called him Curly. But in the next instant, we see what I guess I best describe it as a firework frisbee. And it starts flying around their heads, shooting off fireworks. And hundreds of people appear all around them in the Jetsons' apartment, I guess. And the decorations immediately show up in the background. And her entire family, her entire school, everyone we've seen so far is there. And Nick Nova asks her to dance. And he's like, yeah, I totally would have forgotten about this awesome party. Except, your parents called me and invited me. But, Jane and George, I guess they reached out to everyone and they invited them. This is, their surprise. And Judy now she promised Curly, so now she dances with Curly for 7 seconds. And then the firework frisbee is seen again, and it's actually what Elroy had been working on all week, that tinkering he had been doing. And as the fireworks are flying around, Judy is dancing with Curly. She remarks, we don't always pick our friends, sometimes they pick us, which is, I guess, Curly picked Judy. The frisbee flies over the whole dwelling, and it writes, "Happy birthday, Judy in the sky." And we see, I guess, Judy tie up the story with her diary, talking about how she likes Curly. And the last scene we see is George is talking with Elroy on the balcony because the giant fireworks in the sky spelling out "Happy Birthday, Judy" are still there. And Elroy remarks that they're going to be there until 4 a.m. and George is upset by that. So you could look at this and think that the entire party was a setup by Curly, who kind of orchestrated the entire thing. And there's actually some connections you can draw, but on this podcast, we have theories that suit facts, not facts that suit theories. And I don't spread misinformation. Everything I say is true. So this was not orchestrated by Curly to get a date with Judy. There's no evidence that he was the one who made sure that her car ran out of fuel pellets, or that even he conspired with her parents to have her car run out of fuel pellets, and then to have her parents invite every single person she knew except for him to the party so that he could get a time alone with her before the party and almost follow the Dennis method to the T, or I guess to the D, but there's no evidence to say that. So again, we're not going to spread misinformation, and with that, that's all there is. So I want to thank you for tuning in, and I will see you next time with Super George. Have a good night.
Ah, yes! Saturdays are made for dads. And dads